Hello, everyone. Is this working? Can you hear me? Oh, hello, everyone. We're going to get started. Thanks so much for your patience. Please do come join us inside for this wonderful session. Hello. Thank you all for joining us. Okay, we'll get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session entitled Unveiling the Potential Transformation of Indonesia's Blue Carbon as Nature-Based Solutions for Climate Change Mitigation. We're so pleased to have you all here. His Excellency, esteemed colleagues from around the world, welcome to this session, and thank you to the Ocean Pavilion for hosting us. My name is Emily Kelly, and I lead the Blue Carbon Action Partnership at the World Economic Forum. As the UN General Secretary shared yesterday during the COP29 World Leaders Climate Action Summit in the opening ceremony, the sound you hear is the ticking clock. We are in the final countdown to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And we here in Baku are all hearing this ticking clock. And not only on climate, but also in biodiversity, as many of you may have recently been in Cali at CBD COP16, and as we approach the deadlines for the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we are here to drive collective impact to find solutions together for people, nature, and planet. It's my pleasure to spend the next hour with you discussing the leadership of Indonesia in the midst of the challenges of action and how Indonesia is working with international partners to turn challenges into opportunities. Indonesia is one of the most biodiverse countries in the world with immense potential in leveraging nature-based solutions that strengthen ecosystem resilience to meet its ambitious climate targets. Its coastal ecosystems, mangroves, seagrasses, and salt marshes are globally significant in their carbon sinks, with the largest mangrove area in the world and millions of hectares of seagrasses. Combined, Indonesia stores an estimated 3.14 billion metric tons of carbon in its blue carbon ecosystems. They're invaluable not only for this carbon storage, but of course for their core benefits for communities that live in and around these ecosystems, for food security, critical support for local livelihood, coastal protection, biodiversity habitats, and tourism opportunities. So we know these ecosystems are important, and yet they also remain at risk from existing human activities, impacts of climate change that we see thus far, and the policy and coordination challenges that we all face. So our speakers here today are going to talk about the ways in which Indonesia is channeling best practices in blue carbon conservation, restoration, and sustainable management, and how Indonesia's Blue Carbon Initiative can contribute to the nation's climate goals, as well as global goals like the mangrove breakthrough. We'll further hear about how national and international partnerships provide critical financing to support these efforts. So with that brief opening, I wanted to now give the floor to His Excellency Hendra Yusran Siri, Senior Advisor to the Minister on Ecology and Marine Resources Affairs and the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries of the Republic of Indonesia, to give us opening remarks for this session.
Thank you, Emily. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning, and hope all of you have enjoyed the COP29 in Baku. Distinguished leaders, experts, and committed stewards of our ocean. First of all, I would like to mention here that as we convene in the COP29, the global imperative to address the climate crisis that never been more pronounced. Indonesia recognized the urgency of the challenge. It's steadfast in its commitment to pioneering nature-based solutions, particularly those anchored in the immense potential of blue carbon ecosystem. Indonesia has profound responsibility, a blueprint led not just by policy, but by the geography of our island, the biology of our coastline, and the economy that is intervened with the every mangrove and seagrass bed. This coastal ecosystem acts as a formidable carbon sinks, sequestering atmospheric carbon and mitigating climate change. This is not an abstract asset. It is intangible, measurable, infallible reserve of carbon that represents one of the largest blue carbon reservoirs. In line with our nationally determined contribution under the Paris Agreement, Indonesia. Okay. There's 1, 2, 3. I hope you can hear me properly. Right. Okay. Okay. By setting our target at 31.89% reduction of greenhouse gas emission domestically and 43.2% with the international cooperation, we have built a promise and framework for measurable resilience and inclusive action. This blueprint draws strengths from our blue carbon ecosystem, rich mangrove, seagrass meadows, and tidal marshes that store more than 3 billion metric tons of carbon that contributing to the global climate stabilization while also supporting our communities. So yesterday, our special envoy for the President on Multilateral Cooperation mentioned that we share 50% of our climate contribution for the world as a lung of the carbon. Ladies and gentlemen, as a country with the largest mangrove forest in the world, Indonesia has a national and global responsibility. However, we are acutely aware that responsibility alone will not save this ecosystem. Every mangrove failed and every seagrass meadow degraded is a direct loss in our fight to keep global temperature at bay. This is why Indonesia has woven blue carbon directly into our policy architecture, standing as a model that integrated ecological resilience, economic benefit, and environmental justice. To operationalize this vision, Indonesia has launched the National Blue Carbon Action Partnership, or NCBAP, with a collaboration with World Economic Forum, MLE. This is not symbolic initiative. It is strategic convergence of policy, science, financing mechanism that designed to protect, restore, and harness our coastal ecosystem. However, the gap between blue carbon potential and its actualization lies in the capital, both financial and social. Here, the Indonesian government envisioned a paradigm of blended finance where public funds do not stand alone, but instead serve as a catalyst to attract private investment. This is not charity, it is a strategic co-investment. Carbon credit, sustainable bonds, and NATO-based assets should no longer be exception, but the rules in the climate finance of portfolio. So as we gather here in the Baku, focus on the climate finance, we would like to, again, to invite you to more investment in our ecosystem. Indonesia stands here today to extend not just a hand, but a mandate. To the government, NGO, private sector leaders, and investors among us, we say this: Blue Carbon Initiative cannot survive in the silo of the national interests. We need a collective mandate, one that transcends border and redefine climate resilience as a shared cross-national commitment that we need partners who already stand with us to invest and to innovate and to advocate the blue carbon as a cornerstone of a global climate strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, today's session will provide you with a valuable platform to delve deeper into Indonesia Blue Carbon Initiative. We have a distinguished panel of experts who will shed light on various aspects of our effort, from policy framework to carbon project development and international financing opportunities. So I would like to conclude my remark by inviting you to actively engage in a discussion, share your insight, and contribute to the shaping of the future of our blue carbon of Indonesia and beyond. Let us seize this opportunity to forge the new partnership, strengthen existing one, and collectively chart a course toward a more sustainable and resilient blue carbon and future of our planet. Thank you very much. Terima kasih. Syukron. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, for those inspiring words. It is not just a responsibility, and we are all here to think collectively about strategic co-investment, how we can think about combined national interests with international goals with one another, and sharing cross-national commitments. So thank you for those stirring words as we get started. I want to now ask our esteemed panelists to please come join me on stage. Mr. Muhammad Youssef, Director General of Coastal and Small Island Utilization from the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries of the Republic of Indonesia. Ms. Mezani Irmadhiani, Senior Vice President and Executive Chair of Conservasi Indonesia, and Ms. Jacinda Njeke, Managing Director of Climate Capital Mobilization Accelerator. Thank you all so much for coming today. We're going to start with a few remarks from our wonderful panelists, and then afterwards, please think about questions that you may have for them, because we hope to have a bit of time for Q&A at the end. Pak Youssef, if you would please open and share with us more about Indonesia's blue carbon regulation framework. Yours. I think so. Or you can sit here and use the microphone.
Yeah. Thank you, Emily. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, participants, and panelists. First of all, on behalf of Government of Indonesia, I would like to thank to the committee for inviting us to this important and valuable event of the Ocean Pavilion. It is an honor to be here with all speakers, colleagues, and participants to share Indonesian initiative and effort to manage blue carbon as natural-based solution to climate change mitigation. Second slide, please. Okay, if you see these maps and this bar chart, it means that two ecosystems, mangroves and the seagrass in Indonesia is very huge ecosystem, the large area. It's 17% of the reservoir of the blue carbon is in this ecosystem, is blue ecosystem. But if you see the seagrass, it is just as a grass in the shallow water, but it is seeing more than the terrestrial forest for the CO2. So it is very important ecosystem to climate change mitigation. And we can see the thick line of the blue and the blue and green line. It is concentrated in Indonesia region. The third slide, please. This is we discussed about the regulation in Indonesia. We divided the regulation framework for the blue carbon management in Indonesia in two scopes of activities that support to achieve the NDC target and implementation of carbon pricing. To include the blue carbon in the emission reduction target and NDC, there are several activities that needs to be supported by regulation, such as regulation for setting baseline, for example, maps. We have the two ecosystems in Indonesia is very large, especially for the seagrass. The maps is very complicated because it is not the terrestrial habitat, because it is below water, so it's difficult to making very good maps for the seagrass. So we need make the maps for this ecosystem. And then the emission inventory. It is difficult because we need the emission factor to calculate the emission in that area. For example, in Indonesia, we use tier 1 for the emission factor for the seagrass, but the mangroves, we have the tier 2. We have the second file for the mangroves area. And then to implement the carbon pricing in blue carbon, we also need to create several regulations related to appropriate carbon pricing scheme, guidelines for the blue carbon project document, verification and validation institution and mechanism and certification for carbon project. This is a new regulation in Indonesia in 2021. Indonesia having regulation that called Indonesian Presidential Regulation number 98. This regulation is become the first that has been recognized ocean sector or blue carbon as other sectors expected to contribute to achieve the NDC targets. But unfortunately, the ocean sector not included into the sector in NDC right now globally. But Indonesia tried to put it in the sixth sector in Indonesia. The regulation gives mandates to the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries to carry out the process to define and calculate the inventory and mitigation action. From that mandate, we have identified and recognized some challenges and gaps to manage blue carbon as a potential ocean-based climate action. For example, to build an accurate greenhouse gas emission baseline, it is necessary to provide scientific key data and carry out monitoring continuously. This is with existing capabilities, the Indonesia government in 2022 launched its enhanced NDC. This NDC increased our national ambition reduction GHG emission from 29% to 31.8% unconditionally, and from 41% to 43.2% conditionally compared to business as usual in 2030. To support its implementation, the Ministry of Environment and Forestry as national focal point also published NDC roadmap both for mitigation and adaptation, as well as Indonesia long-term strategy for low carbon and climate resilience 2050. This document serves a guideline for sectors and subsectors to achieve the national ambition target. This year, 2024, Indonesia will submit a second NDC document in which there is a commitment to increase ambition to reduce greenhouse gas emission by including new issues that and sector, namely ocean. You can see the ocean, the new sector. The addition of the ocean sector as the sixth sector in Indonesia is focused on the mitigation of reducing GHG emission in accordance with the mandate of Decision 1 CMA 4 paragraph 79. So what the progress in Indonesia to manage the blue carbon in the future? Indonesia, through the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, has taken accelerated step. The first one, we have to preparing a new national seagrass map, which will be published at the end of the 2024. This is the very important maps data for calculating the GHG emission from the seagrass meadow. And the second one, preparing of the blue carbon database application. This is very important because what the maps is not, it should be updated by 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So we have to make one platform. So everyone, academy, NGO, and others can update the data by them and put it in one platform. What the the importance, we need the update of mapping, carbon stock measurement, emission factor research, potential blue carbon project location, etc. And the third one, carry out inventory of GHG absorption from the seagrass ecosystem. This is very important things. We have to know how much the seagrass ecosystem can absorb the CO2. And the last one, this is very important things, preparing regulation related to the mitigation action and implementing the economy value of carbon in the marine sector. The status, we already have a new regulation named Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries Decree number 52/2024 concerning the roadmap for climate change mitigation in marine and fisheries sector has been established. Future plan, the draft of ministerial regulation on the economic value ocean sector carbon is currently in process. And this is the last my slide. This is the regulation in progress. We have been identified. We have to strengthen and to complete the regulation in Indonesia. We have been completed in the red text, and the blue one we are still preparing, and we have as soon as possible to be completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Youssef. Such a lot of work and coordination going into the efforts of KKP in moving all of this forward, creating the regulation framework that allows us to maximize how we can share and invest in these blue carbon ecosystems. I'll shift gears now to hand over to Meisani Irma Hayani, Senior Vice President and Executive Chair of Conservasi, and appreciate her words talking more about the National Blue Carbon Action Partnership and the work of Conservasi within this. Thanks, Meisani.
Thank you, Emily. Good morning. Is it afternoon or morning? I can't even remember anymore. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. His Excellency Pak Hendra and dear friend Pak Yusuf, and also Emily and then Jacinda. So I'm here, Conservasi Indonesia. We are an Indonesian NGO, partners of Conservation International. We are established as a nature conservation NGO in Indonesia. We have about 16 offices all over Indonesia, and we are so excited to be sharing a little bit about our work in the NBCAP, or the National Blue Carbon Action Partnership, which was just established this year, actually, with that is being chaired by the Indonesian government. And this is really an effort to connect actors and move forward the agenda around blue carbon. So I think Emily, Pak Yusuf, Pak Hendra also has mentioned the importance of Indonesia's role in the blue carbon roadmap for the world, including in the efforts of course, in mangrove areas and as well as seagrass. I want to emphasize that a lot of the work around blue carbon, what's fascinating about it is that it's not just about climate mitigation, which we know is very important, but all of these areas are in the shorelines areas, and this is a really important effort around adaptation as well. And most of the 250 million population of Indonesia, a lot of them are living in the shorelines or are dependent their livelihoods or their food sources from the areas, whether it's fisheries, activities offshore, or even aquaculture. So these important ecosystems are critical for not only protection for climate mitigation, but also resiliency for the future. And what is the NBCAP, or the National Blue Carbon Action Partnerships? Of course, it's really, it's chaired by the Indonesian government, and it's really focused on targets and commitments that Indonesia has led in this space as well. That Pa Yusuf has mentioned quite a number of areas, including the targets around alignment, NDCs. But to summarize this NBCAP, it's really a platform to do three things. One, as mentioned, is to support this alignment within Indonesia's target on blue carbon. There's a lot of actors. Within the Indonesian government, blue carbon falls under a few different ministries as well as local government. So not only the national government, but also local government. So that alignment is something that the Indonesian government has mentioned is really critical as the first step. The second is really from this alignment to create a roadmap for the blue carbon actions for the future, to really align everyone, create a roadmap, and really strategize on what are the key priorities the next 1 to 5 years that will help achieve the NDC and also increase the ambition and the co-benefits of these actions on the ground. The third, and most importantly as well, that in order to achieve these roadmaps is how do we build a strong view around investments of blue carbon. Because we know that these blue carbon areas, some may be in remote areas like in Papua, but a lot of these areas are spread in the areas like in Sumatra, in Java, Kalimantan, Sulawesi. So what are the types of investment that could be developed with this platform? So just a quick recap of our timeline. The NBCAP Indonesia has been announced by the Indonesian government with the World Economic Forum back in January 2023, last year, but it started really starting this year. So we have been selected, Konservasi Indonesia has been selected to chair, to be the secretariat of this platform. Oops, I was in the wrong slide, I'm sorry. I was in the first slide. And then this is just a quick, we have a lot of meetings, right? Like a lot of meetings. So the thing about platforms is that we really need to get all the actors together. But the meetings are really well in place to do not only engages, to ensure that government priorities and vision are set in stone, but also to engage other partners, whether it's from the science community, the private sector, as well as other development partners like the NGOs. So these meetings are important, and these are some things that we have done to really talk from the high level towards project-based activities. And what are the main focus of these engagements as well is these things around the investment roadmaps. So funding opportunities, Pa Hendra, Pa Yusuf mentioned quite a bit about that the importance of not only protecting but ensuring that there's solution around financing for these projects. So the types of activities we look at, we try to aggregate information from existing programs and projects around Indonesia, try to get lesson learns, whether that's types of investment around impact only, so impact base, that can be technical assistance grants, but also looking at other types of financing structure. So insurance that comes into play, because this is basically the areas that is on the shorelines. How do we develop insurance mechanisms and other types of mechanisms, investments like debt and equity. So these are things that we are looking to do as part of the creation of the roadmap and the investment strategy. And also, one of the most important thing about blue carbon and the potential carbon benefits that come into play is that typically the projects for blue carbon are smaller, right, than your typical land-based, maybe peatland or tropical forest types of carbon projects, because Typically, these ecosystems are spread in different places. But what's interesting about it is that most of these blue carbon projects can be developed as high integrity because the number of co-benefits is much more immense in numbers than some of the other projects on land. So developing the principles of high quality blue carbon and what that means for Indonesia and what are the examples are also an important part of this action partnership. We are not just working and learning from Indonesia, but this engagement between the Indonesian government with the World Economic Forum really tries to also accelerate learning from other places worldwide. So we can see a lot of different types of activities that has been done or worldwide. We try to frame it as three different things. There's blue carbon integration. Typically, those things are engaging around integration of blue carbon to the NDCs and also developing other economic incentives. But also, the second one is blue carbon initiatives. So things like the roadmap for blue carbon, private sector engagement, as well as community-based activities. The third learning from the global activities around blue carbon is the actual projects itself. What does it look like around blue carbon projects, let's say in the mangrove? How does land tenure being developed? We can look at that from examples like in Colombia, in Madagascar, Fiji, and other places as well. So those learnings are integrated also with the vision and the commitment of Indonesian government to accelerate these climate mitigation and adaptation solutions. Just a little bit also, we are the secretariat for the NBCAP, but Konservasi Indonesia also have been working in different parts of Indonesia. As I mentioned, we have 16 offices all over the country. We work on various projects relating to the protection and management of blue carbon ecosystems. So we are working, for example, in Nias in North Sumatra. The target is for mangrove conservation and rehabilitation of marine protected areas. So this work is done together with the IUCN and also, of course, the local government and the local communities as part of developing other economic livelihoods within this area that's typically reliant, focus on fisheries that is also only seasonal. The other areas that we work in is, we have other things like working with aquaculture farming. So in Banyuwangi, as well as in Sulawesi, we are working with aquaculture farms, shrimp farming in particular. In Banyuwangi is really focusing on productivity and how to improve productivity while improving the ecosystems so that there is incentive to not destroy any more mangrove that exists in that area. In Lalombi, in central Sulawesi, it's a different type of activity, which we call the climate smart shrimp, which focusing on both developing new, intensive, and productive aquaculture for shrimp, but at the same time protecting and also restoring mangrove. And we are looking into seeing what is the business model, how much does it cost, what is the return on investment, because we know a lot of the degradation that happened in the mangrove ecosystem in Sumatra and Java back in the 80s and 90s is because of shrimp farming. But because of that destruction of mangrove, the ecosystem does not have the ability to recuperate, and then a lot of challenges in terms of quality of water, which in turn affects very much the productivity of these farms itself. So really trying to find different business model around this is quite important. And of course, in Papua, where we have been investing for numbers of decades, we are working closely with the customary communities, the adat communities, on high carbon rich ecosystems in the largest mangrove forests in the world, like in Sorong, in Fakfak, and Kaimana. So there's a lot of strategic step forward. I would like to emphasize, like what the Indonesian government has mentioned, we have urgent needs to do this, but we cannot do this alone, and partnership is key, and finding solutions and keep learning, as well as developing other financing mechanism, is going to be clear way to really strengthen and scale as well as accelerate actions for blue carbon. Thank you.
Thank you, Maisani. And just to add that we at the World Economic Forum are so thrilled to be working with Conservasi as a secretariat for the National Blue Carbon Action Partnership in Indonesia, and grateful for the leadership of KKP, of the coordinating ministry who has brought us together, of Bappenas, and the Ministry of Environment and Forestry in their participation to drive this work forward as the government of Indonesia. I will just make one quick additional note that if you want to talk more about the NBCAP or elements of that and what we might be discussing at COP, would love to chat with you about that afterwards. However, the perfect segue that Maisani offered, which is it's so important to have these partnerships and to be working internationally as well. And so that is the perfect connection to introduce our next speaker, Jacinda and JK, Managing Director of Climate Capital Mobilization Accelerator. Thank you for your remarks.
Thank you, Kelly. Oh. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kelly, and thank you for all of your comments so far. I just mentioned I'm learning a lot as well. My name is Jacinda Njike, and I'm with Ambition Loop and with the Climate Champions team. And we have recently been appointed as the Secretariat for the Global Mangrove Alliance. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here today, is to really celebrate the achievements that Indonesia has made towards their national plan, because as we all know, in order to achieve the climate action, it takes partnership between public and private sector. And so at Ambition Loop, we really work with non-state actors in the private sector to galvanize them around and behind the actions of the government to ensure that our activities are aligned and that we're all moving together in the same direction. And one of the things that we work on right now is really developing the pipeline of projects that can be financed and working with financiers to see how we can creatively work on innovative solutions to bring more capital into these projects. So blue carbon is amazing, and that we know that the benefits of investing in blue carbon are greater than even those investing in rainforests, and we know how critical these ecosystems are for adaptation. But what we haven't figured out is how to valorize this so that we can get the greatest impact from financiers. And part of our challenge this year at COP29, the Finance COP, is to really put on our thinking caps and say, how can we accelerate and scale these types of investments into blue carbon? How can we support the government of Indonesia? How can we support the conservation organizations who have strategically and are deeply diving into the data and providing the platform that we need in order to have the information necessary for financial actors to make decisions around investments? And so that is one of the things that they noted earlier in their conversation, is that accumulation of data around some of these points is not easy, right? And it's not something that's been done in the past. And so in order for us to have the biggest impact from financiers, we do need to have the most accurate and current data. And so one of the things that we support is SMEs and local participants who are helping to build these ecosystems of information, who are helping to build the ecosystems around the mangroves. And so one thing we like to emphasize at Ambition Loop is that it's not only the conservation and restoration, but it's all of the economic players, like the shrimp farmers, like the other agricultural activities that actually impact the mangroves, right? They are the reason why the degradation is occurring. And so we need to help them transition into more feasible, more sustainable practices that encourage more longevity of the mangrove ecosystem. So it's not only, working to restore what's been degraded, but it's how can we proactively support economic actors to create more sustainable business models that have smaller impacts on the environment in general. So as we look forward, we really look want to bring on more investors. We want to bring in more private sector, but we know it's not an easy feat because a lot of these are public. There's land tenure issues, there's other global issues, other legal issues, but at the end of the day, it is going to be a partnership, whether there's blended finance solutions, whether there's debt for nature swaps, whether there's sustainable insurance products that can help mitigate some of the risk related to investments in these areas. A lot of the investments that are currently being made under Blue Carbon are really supported by the governments and are backed by public and have a lot of public, what they need is a lot of public infrastructure to support those transactions. And what I mean by that is that the regulations that they're putting in place now make investors secure when they're investing in these types of opportunities. So Indonesia is an amazing example of what it takes to set up a framework that makes investment into these ecosystems more viable. And so more countries need to use models like this so that they can increase the ability of funders to invest in these markets. And like I said, it's not even all international. It's a lot of local domestic capital that needs to be mobilized into these markets. The 2.4 trillion gap for emerging and developing economies, half of that should be domestic capital and half of that should be international capital. So we really need to have these innovative financing mechanisms that can help bring in and help leverage capital and help pool capital, whether it's grants that catalyze initial projects that can help, we have some nature-based solutions where the initial grant funding has leveraged 1 to 100 with private capital. So the returns on the private capital can be significant with some of that initial grant capital. So it's really going to take a lot of creativity, a lot of working together, a lot of partnerships and collaborations at both the local community level with the making sure that we're protecting the rights of the indigenous populations and the local communities and giving them the greatest benefit sharing proportions, but it's also going to take a lot of collaboration at the international levels to ensure that the proper regulatory frameworks are in place to allow that capital to flow. And so we're really encouraged by what's happening on the ground in Indonesia. We're supporting several projects in Indonesia and other countries. Mexico, Guinea-Bissau are some of our other countries where we're really trying to move forward with these investment roadmaps and move forward with engagement with the private sector so that we can increase the amount of capital that is flowing to these very important ecosystems. And the other last point that I would like to just make is that adaptation finance is a lot this year we're trying to increase a lot of mitigation focused finance, but we're also focusing on adaptation finance. And Standard Chartered has put together a framework that helps really identify what is an adaptation, because these impacts, how do we measure them? How do we account for them? How do we give credit for those companies who are investing in adaptation and resilience? And these are the types of things that the more and more companies, governments, private sector start to actually create matrix and measurements that can support the impacts, we can really increase and accelerate. As if we're only looking at profit in these projects, we're not going to get as far. But if we can look at purpose and profit equally, valuing them at the same level, then we can move a lot faster. So we really encourage you and your organizations and with your partners to, really be creative, be innovative, and really push the envelope on how these innovative financing mechanisms, a lot of these nascent technologies need our support. They need some first loss capital, but we also understand that the cost of capital in some of these markets makes it a bit prohibitive. So we really do need, more guarantee mechanisms, more parametric insurance tools and others that can help de-risk the capital coming into these markets, because in the long run, it's for everyone's greater benefit that we bring the cost of capital down so that people can invest more. So we're really, looking forward to this continued partnership and how we can work together to really unlock more capital for mangroves and other coastal communities. Thank you.
Such a wonderful segue now into hearing more from you all and what questions you may have. So appreciate Jacinda's words about partnerships and how we can really maximize capital entering into these ecosystems with some concessional capital and how that can unlock much more. of course, we are also, Indonesia is operating in support also of the Mangrove Breakthrough as a co-convener of MAC. And the goal there is conserving and restoring 14 million hectares of mangroves and mobilizing 4 billion. I have to make sure I get my millions and billions correct. 4 billion in by 2030. So really exciting to hear about the work that's ongoing right now. I would like to open it to you all for some questions. And while you think about those questions, unless there's someone whose hand I see right away, I'll let you think about it for a moment. And I just want to turn to the panel and ask if you might share. You all shared some challenges and opportunities that you see ahead. Could you dive a little bit more into one of the exciting opportunities that you see and something that you think you could unlock within the next year as we look ahead, dare I say it, to a COP30, as we think ahead of what we all want to arrive at COP30 with? Could you share, what one of those exciting opportunities might be, or exciting next steps, deliverables, partnerships, et cetera? And Pak Yusuf, if I might start with you.
Thank you. If you see the condition right now, the temperature is getting high, so it is very important to make a plan or a program in our country or each country in the world that they will be aware about the climate change. So Indonesia have some programs to make an action. For example, the marine spatial planning, the three ecosystem, mangroves, seagrass, and coral reefs, putting in a critical area, a critical zone. So this is the planning in Indonesia. Put the three ecosystem is very important ecosystem for the next generation. These three ecosystem is very important rules in the ocean ecosystem because some species would dependent to these ecosystems. So if we're talking about the climate change, we don't talk. If we're talking about the coastal or marine ocean sector, we don't talk about just the climate change, but we are talking about the biodiversity too. This is very challenging for the future. It is different with the terrestrial forest because all the world is the water is bigger than the land. So it is important for us for the next generation for food security too. It is very important. So we have we want to, everyone increase their awareness to the coastal or ocean area, how to protect, how to increase the ecosystem of the three ecosystem in the world.
Maisani, over to you.
Just to add a little bit, I think one of the most exciting opportunities, just taking COP30 as the next sort of milestone, is to have a list of projects, right? Because I think, of course, we are very excited for the roadmap alignment that the government's leadership is bringing forth. And also, I think this idea around projects is important because we need to be able to visualize what these activities look like, as well as what types of financing will be needed to really accelerate and achieve the impact. Because without real project definitions as well as models, it will be impossible to learn and replicate and scale.
Thank you. I'm so glad to hear that because that's literally our number one task is to develop lists of projects and focus on how we can start to aggregate those projects around the world. One of the things we're doing at Ambition Loop is literally pulling in what we're calling pipeline partners, or like the CFA and all of these other organizations that have a large set of climate, nature, and land positive projects, but they don't get the visibility, they don't have the access to market. And so really trying to see how we can put those on a platform to get more eyes on these projects and more information about them. The second point I will make is that this year there's the 3 Rio conventions. And so this wonderful opportunity really to say that, COP16 is normally called the desertification COP, but it's really about land and soil. And what's more, important to land and soil than mangroves in some of these regions. And so it's really important that not only in like he was saying, in the climate and the biodiversity, but that, we really link all of these conventions, we really link all of these frameworks so that all of this energy is really going in the same direction. And so I think that that's a really good opportunity this year that we can have to put forward mangroves into the agenda of the UNCCD and make sure that that is a part of all the solutions and financing opportunities being raised in that platform. And then the last thing I will just say is that there is the opportunity, a lot of investments sometimes, they're larger scale investments. And so aggregating and creating landscape approaches to projects, I think is also going to be an important step. And what I mean by landscape is kind of, you look at a complete landscape and all of the different players and you see how can we impact that entire region and not just focus, on one piece of the project. So having that kind of bird's eye view will really, I think, also increase the ability to really support these ecosystems.
Thank you so much. Oh, wonderful. We have a question. Great. Do we have a microphone? Oh, 2 questions. Perfect. Okay, we'll start in the back.
Hello. We have a few questions. Robert Hollebach, I'm with Fugro. I'm part of the one of the largest ocean and coastal mapping companies in the world. Yesterday we had a presentation about the full seagrass mapping of Italy. We also do projects around mangroves for the full state of Queensland in Australia. My question, and I think it's great, and you put mapping first in your presentation, Mr. Youssef, so I'm very happy with that. Can you maybe extend a little bit on how that mapping happens and works? Because we all know Indonesia is an extremely complex country, a large country. I also know there's a large initiative ongoing in Indonesia. It's called the BIG initiative to map the whole of the country, coastal and topographic. So I was wondering if there's a connection to the BIG program and if you could elaborate a little bit more on the mapping that's happening of seagrass and of the other carbon sinks.
Thank you for the very interesting question. Right now, in Indonesia, the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fishery, for the maps or the seagrass and mangroves, and not the mangroves, the seagrass and the coral reefs, being map co-student from the BIG. So this is our responsible to make the maps for the seagrass and the coral reefs. But I think it is very difficult to making maps for the seagrass and the coral reefs. It's because this is below the waters. We make some we call collaboration with BIG, BRIN, and the several university to make this map. So we make one national standard for making the maps. So all stakeholders make the map should be use this standard, national standard. So we can make the one. I imagine that Indonesia is very large, so we make like a puzzle. Which one is making the maps with the standard? So we make the new maps and with the standard maps. That is Indonesia doing right now.
Yeah, I think what the PAYUSEP responsibility right now. So we create the map based on the standard what we call the SNI, Standard National Indonesia. This is standard because it's used guideline by mapping standardizations, and PAYUSEP also create nodes. So we have a what we call this networking among universities and also among the research institute all Indonesia, because we need to to contribute it. Seagrass is one of the ecosystem that less attention compared to mangrove and coral reef Indonesia. What the data what we get right now is only coral reef from our previous project like CoreMap 2. There's the data that we collect for coral reef, but also we collect the seagrass. Now, with some collaboration with the NGO as well, in Sumatra, in Riau Archipelagic Province, we have also already collected the data, and we have also, together with some universities, put it there, and the thematic map will be put it into all the map of Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you both. I think we have a question also in the front, please.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, greetings, Pak Hendra, Pak Yusuf. I'm from WWF. And the theme is very, very, very good. Yeah, we in WWF are prepared to facilitate an angel investor, basically, it's from the private sector. What they want to do is to actually develop income generating project for MPAs in Indonesia. And I was curious whether when you're mentioning these pilots and so forth, whether that's possible to be put under kind of the auspice of the government, so that it's it becomes a formal part of the pilot of how to implement the carbon and maybe even biodiversity credits for protecting MPAs. In one side, if there is interest in that, and what's good about that is also that they want to make sure that any benefit or income actually goes to the MPA management, which could be the BLU, could be from the provincial government, could be from the national government. I just want to hear what your thoughts are on this kind of collaboration, and then maybe how we should proceed. Thank you very much.
And apologies that we'll have to be brief now, but I hope additional conversation, just noting we have to wrap the session now. But Pak Yusuf, over to you.
Okay, thank you. For the marine protected area in Indonesia, we have some, we call how to make, what you could say, EPICA, we have indicators for the marine protected area in Indonesia. Which one is the in the low, which one is in the high management? Management. So it is in Indonesian how to recognize which MPA is valuable then. But if I don't talk about the marine protected area, but in some area in Indonesia, for example, mangroves and some area, for example, coral reefs, being getting income for the local communities. It is very important for the local communities. There are many local communities along our coastal area, so they should be raise their awareness to this ecosystem. For example, in some area, they getting income. For example, $3,000 million. I think 3,000 until $6,000 per month. It is very, very. I think it's very big money for the local communities. It is one example for not protected area, but I think the protected area is more opportunities to do that because the ecosystem is in good condition. Thank you.
Misani. Oh, you both like to add.
Oh, maybe just to add, and to wrap up. Also, it's the Indonesian government. We're also supporting the mapping for seagrass. But also, I think what's exciting about what Indonesian leadership is doing is that there's a lot of efforts around coral positive businesses, or in this case, blue carbon positive businesses. And I think whether that's in areas in the east, like for the debt to nature swap, or whether it's working with the activities that the Indonesian government does in the Sumatra or Riau area, there's a lot of opportunities, I think, to engage in the coral positive or mangrove positive activities, including investments that come in. That what's exciting also is because that will feed into the EFICA, and I think that's the uniqueness of Indonesian indicator for effectiveness of MPA management, is that in order to achieve the gold standard, you have to have that partnership and livelihoods component. Without it, it won't be gold standard. So I think even Indonesia is setting up its ambition so high, beyond the point of just establishing an MPA, but also effectively managing. Thanks.
Thank you.
I like it. We have to wrap up right now. Thank you for those wonderful questions. And I think please one more thank you to both our esteemed keynote speaker, His Excellency, and our wonderful panel. Thank you for your discussion about policy, political will, collaboration, partnerships, finance, science, and all of these pieces that we need to move forward together. So looking forward to more good discussions and hope the conversation continues outside. Thank you again.